Hey guys, I know this is super late in the week, but we have been away on vacation over here in Orlando, and I'm trying to keep my voice down because the kids are asleep right now. But I wanted to go ahead and get this out to you guys. I'm excited for this Sunday as we kick off kind of our summer series called Different, where we're going to be looking at 9 different characteristics or things that make us different as being Christians. Jesus called us to be different from the rest of the world, so that's kind of the rhyme and that's the influence. We're going to be looking at not just how are we supposed to be believing differently, but also how are we supposed to live different. So this Sunday is going to set that all up and kind of explain what we're doing over the summer. Before we dive into that, just a couple of quick things coming up. There are only 2 more weeks. Let's see, June 6th, excuse me. There's only one more week to be able to register for camp. And so this is kind of our last opportunity to really push it. If there's any students that have not signed up, they need to go ahead and sign up, at least pay the deposit. And if they need help, this Sunday is the last time that they can say, hey, I need some help, and we can look to find a scholarship for them. So if you can help me with that, as well as this coming Wednesday is our first summer night. It's gonna be our tribe night. And basically we're just gonna have a variety of different games set up. We'll have the dodgeball set up. We'll have the basketball hoop set up, cornhole. Just time to be able to come hang out, play, have fun, just to keep community over the summer. We would love to have you guys. I can't do it all by myself. I need some help. But I'd love to have you guys come and just come hang out with us. So with that being said, as far as this lesson, we're going to be looking at we're going to be looking at 1 Peter chapter 2. And so once again, the big idea for this is that we are supposed to be different. In fact, we're saved to be different. Jesus didn't die on the cross for us to look just like everybody else. And kind of the heart behind this, where this kind of comes out of, is we spend a lot of time trying to fit in. We spend a lot of time trying to look like everybody else, buying the same clothes as everyone else, trying to talk like everyone else. We see people that we think are doing things well, and we just mimic and model that. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with modeling someone else, but specifically when it comes to the issue of Christianity, when it comes to the issue of faith, when it comes to the issue of Jesus, the things that get me are people who claim to be Christians don't like going to church. They don't like being with the people of God. They worship for them as something that's weird and distant. Though they believe Jesus, they don't necessarily want to worship him on their own personal time. When it comes to praying is weird. Like, I believe in Jesus. I believe Jesus saved me, but I don't want to talk to him, you know? Reading my Bible. Why in the world would I want to read my Bible? That's boring. That's foreign. And yet, if Jesus died to save me and he has a message to change my life, shouldn't I want to read that message? And the problem with addressing it head on this way is almost like, hey, if you say you believe these things and you need to do this, like we're guilt tripping you into this. I don't find that to be very effective. I find it more to be effective like, hey, let's have an honest conversation, you know? Like, let's talk about what should be the outcomings of actual faith. And if we really do have this faith, what does it say that faith needs to look like? What's the overflow of that faith? People can claim they believe whatever they want, but at the end of the day, you can tell what a person believes based on their actions. That's what James is trying to argue throughout his entire book. So if someone believes that there's aliens and yet they never talk about aliens, they never, are constantly trying to find UFOs, you kind of be like, what? That's not kind of even out there, but like, if I try to convince you guys, like, I'm all into surfing and like I'm buying surfing gear and surfing hats and I buy a surfboard and stuff, but then we go to the beach and every time you ask me to go surfing, I'm like, nah, I don't want to. Be like, come on, man. That doesn't seem like it lines up. So as Christians, if we say we believe something, it should impact how we live. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that means that we should be different. We should look different, act different, talk different, believe different, and be different. So that's what this lesson is all setting up. The open activity is pretty straightforward. Just kind of an opening game. Have everyone write down 7 things that they think makes them unique or different from everyone else in the group. And it's important for them to actually write them down, because then you're going to go around and have each person kind of read off, well, what are the 7 things that make me different? Like for me, I might say, hey, I was homeschooled growing up, because that might make me different. I'm a Virginia Tech Hokies fan. That might make me different. I'm one of 5 kids. I have hazel eyes. I have a beard, all these different things that I think make me different. As you go around, you read, and each time you hear something that someone else has in common with you, you put down the same thing, cross it off, doesn't count anymore. And the goal is to see who's able to come up with the most differences or uniquenesses all about them. But this kind of stems out of this idea of we want to be different. We don't want to be like everyone else, but why is difference so important? So I gave you a couple of questions. Do we like the things about us that make us different? Why or why not? When we think about being different, is it a good thing or a bad thing? And when you think about Jesus, was he different from other people? Why or why not? And again, this is to set it all up that Jesus has asked us to be different from the rest of the world. So at this point, we'll dive into 1 Peter chapter 2. We're going to be reading verses 4 through 12, and then also verses 21 through 25. I've broken those up throughout the lesson. And again, the big idea, Jesus saved us to be different. And I think I've said this in a couple other videos. I want you to reiterate this point multiple times throughout the lesson. Because this is what we're trying to help our students understand. Jesus saved us to be different. We don't believe and then have nothing change about us. If we've been saved, if our lives have been changed by Jesus, then that change needs to be something that's different. And we're gonna learn 3 things. We're gonna learn that because of our belief in Jesus, we have a different foundation than other people. We have a different lifestyle than other people, and ultimately we have a different purpose from other people. So 1 Peter chapter 2, verses 4 through 8, very similar to our last curriculum. I'd encourage you to read the passage and then ask questions. I think as students read the passage and you ask the questions, and I've laid out the questions pretty straightforward, and I've tried to tie them back directly to verses from the text. Maybe you gotta go back and read the verses. That helps kind of illuminate and bring out the text to make sure we're understanding the text, but then it takes the conversation to, so what does the text mean? It's not enough just to understand what the text says. I gotta know, what does it mean? And what am I supposed to do with it? So verses 4 through 8 is all about a different foundation, how Jesus is the cornerstone. And just like if you were building something, you gotta start somewhere. You gotta have that first stone that sets the groundwork for how everything else is gonna be laid. So if Jesus is our cornerstone, that means that our houses should look different. Our foundation is different from the rest of the world. The second big idea is that our lifestyle is different. That we're supposed to be doing good deeds rather than following our own selfish impulses or desires. And this comes out of 1 Peter 2, 9 through 12, which really talks about how kind of the central idea behind this lesson, that we are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, a holy nation that's been called out of darkness into his marvelous light. Why? So that our good works would shine forth. And so one of I think a really great question I enjoyed kind of coming up with is, what's the ultimate goal of living a godly life? We kind of clown on people, we kind of make fun of people who are goody two shoes, or people who just seem like they're trying too much. And yet, why? Why are we trying to live a godly life? If Jesus saved us for our lives to look absolutely no different, then what's the purpose of being saved? But we want to stress the fact that no, Jesus did in fact, he saved us so that our lives would change, so that our lives would become different, so that all of a sudden, instead of acting like people walking in darkness, we'd become people who are walking in light, that our lifestyles would radiate that. One of my favorite verses, Matthew 5:16, says, "Let your light so shine before men, that they would see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." People should look at us and be attracted to our Jesus, not look at us and be like, I don't know about them Christians, So we're supposed to have a different lifestyle. And then finally, we have a different purpose that we live for. Our purpose is no longer built around building up our kingdom, but it's rather about building up his kingdom. And the reason that we're trying to build up his kingdom, verse 24 says, he himself bore our sins in his own body on the tree, that we might die to sin and live to righteousness. By his wounds you've been healed. And what does that mean I've been healed from? If someone was willing to sacrifice so much for me, does that change or alter the direction of my life? And if they lived a different kind of life, if they said, hey, people didn't like me, people put me to death, and if you choose to follow me, the same thing could happen to you, should I be ready and willing for that? So Peter wants us to understand we've been called to be different. We've been saved to be different. Life shouldn't remain the same. And as you kind of come down to the very end of the lesson, this is the application component. What do we do with this? I've given you some different questions to ask, helping the students kind of think through it and go, okay, what is it that I need to be applying? But I really want you to explain, take some time right at the end to really explain what we're going to be doing over the summer. And so you'll notice that I've put before concluding, ask for specific prayer requests about the upcoming week. One of the things that we're going to try to do over the summer is asking for prayer requests on very specific things. A lot of times they'll be related to the lesson and we'll continue to pray, hey, if your dog's sick, if grandma's got a surgery coming up, things like that. But we want to be specific in our prayer requests, and we don't just want to pray and then be like, okay, whatever. But we actually want to pray and teach our students to also pray and to continue to pray, because God loves it when we continually ask Him and draw closer to Him. So one of the things I encourage you to do is to write down. You can do this on your phone, open up a notes component on your phone. If you don't know how to do that, one of your students can show you. Write down, type out what the prayer requests are, and then pray for them. But then the next week, before you start, and this will be in the lesson, before you start, open that up and be like, hey, last week we were praying for these things. What's the update on that? And then I'll show our students, hey, you were listening when I told you about that, but we're not just supposed to, oh, you asked for a prayer request, I thought one up, now I feel good, I told someone a prayer request. But like, this is the things we care about. These are the things we're taking to God, and we're praying about them again and again. And we're going to teach our students to pray that way. But I want you to explain that over the summer, we're going to continually be posting to our social media, and I've included our accounts in it. But we want them to follow us on social media. If you have a student that's not on social media, doesn't have access to that, we will also be emailing out kind of the content that we're going to be posting each day, that they can have access to it that way. But we want our students to every single day spend a little bit of time with God. So on Mondays, it might be like a poll, it might be something to interact with, something to get them thinking about the big idea for the week. Starting next week, we're going to really be looking at the fact that God's called us to love. God's called us to be surrendered to Him. We're going to start thinking about that through a poll. And then on Tuesday, we're going to have a Bible passage to read. Like, hey, this is going to be the text. We're going to read it on Sunday. We're going to study it on Sunday, but go ahead and read it now. And here's some big ideas to start thinking about. Then on Wednesday, there'll be another component where there'll be some activity for them to do. Thursday will be an opportunity for them to kind of give some feedback on how the activity went. And Friday will be kind of like, hey, this is kind of just what I feel like God's teaching me through doing this study. And it's just a way to stay engaged throughout the week, start thinking about it now, so when we gather together on Sunday, we have something to really discuss and to dive in. And it's not just you guys, lecturing on what the Bible has to say, but it's us studying the Bible together. I'd encourage you to explain that, put that out. I think I put it in the lesson fairly easily if you want to just read that to them. And then the one last kind of unique thing that we're going to do over the summer, I believe that is important, is to have a student speak back, what was the big idea for the day? And so our big idea for today was Jesus saved us to be different. And we want to get someone to be able to articulate that back, and just once again, reminding us, going over and over and over, making sure we get the big idea. Because if Jesus died to save us, it should have an impact on our life. It should cause us to be different. And that's what we're called to be as Christians. So I hope this is helpful, and I will see you guys on Sunday.